Our third presenter is Kareem El-Assal, the Director of Policy and Digital Strategy at Canada Visa. He oversees content development across Canada Visa's web properties, including canadavisa.com and cicnews.com, which is one of the resources I use literally every day. For over a decade, Kareem has worked in the Canadian immigration space, including at NSCC, the Immigration Refugee Board of Canada, and Global Affairs Canada. He's authored over 500 publications on Canadian immigration. His research has been cited by the likes of Canada's Immigration Minister, ISCC, Statistics Canada, and the OECD. His research has covered topics such as immigration levels, the economic impact of immigration, express entry, the PMP, Canadian immigration governance, international students, temporary foreign workers, and entrepreneur and investor immigration. He is a graduate of the University of Toronto and Durham University. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky, for that kind introduction. So I've been invited by the conference organizers to discuss the role of technology and how we can leverage it to promote more immigration to smaller communities across Canada. About 25 years ago, stakeholders across Canada came together to propose an innovation aimed at addressing one of our biggest immigration challenges at that time. 80% of Canada's immigrants went to just 3 provinces: Ontario, BC, and Quebec. And so this meant the Prairie and Atlantic provinces struggled to also benefit from immigration to promote their economic development. And so the provincial nominee program was born. The PNP, in conjunction with other regionalization initiatives and programs such as the AIP here in Atlantic Canada, has now supported a broader distribution of immigration across Canada. However, we have another major regionalization challenge that remains unresolved, and it is one I hope technology can provide us assistance in. And that challenge is that without fail across Canada, in every single province and territory, without exception, 80% of all newcomers go to the largest cities. So in Ontario, 80% go to the GTA, in BC, 80% go to Vancouver, and this is the rule again, in every jurisdiction. And so this means Canada's main regionalization challenge today is identifying how we can attract, support, and retain newcomers in smaller cities as well as in rural communities. When thinking about how to address this challenge, we have to put the end user, the newcomers themselves, front and center, and identify how we can connect with them in the means that they're looking to connect in. Research shows, unsurprisingly, that newcomers love technology, and there's a growing body of research highlighting this. Media Technology Monitor, for instance, is a research division of the CBC, and they survey Canadians regularly to understand their technology patterns. In their most recent survey of newcomers, they found that newcomers are less likely than the Canadian-born population to own TVs and laptops, and 87% of newcomers only rely on their cell phones as their only device. Newcomers are also more likely than the Canadian-born population to perform searches on their phones, watch online videos, stream music and podcasts, access social media, and read the news. Unfortunately, however, there are major gaps between the information consumption patterns of newcomers and the abilities of stakeholders in the immigration space to connect with the newcomers themselves. Something I'm very proud of, and we should all be very proud of, is Canada has by far the most robust settlement program in the world. IRCC now spends $2 billion annually on settlement services, including the grant to Quebec, which is 7 times more than what the department spent in the early 2000s. But unfortunately, many newcomers do not know that IRCC-funded services exist, or they simply don't know how to access them. In 2021, IRCC released its first ever settlement outcomes report, and some takeaways include 70% of non-clients surveyed were unaware of the free IRCC-funded services available to them. And among newcomers aware of the services, almost 60% said they did not know how to access the services they needed. In addition, in 2018, IRCC released the findings of its evaluation on its pre-arrival services, and only around 7% of eligible clients used pre-arrival services during the evaluation period. IRCC surveys also indicate that 70% of eligible clients don't know pre-arrival services exist. One observation I'd like to make on these figures is I personally find them to be very alarming. We all know newcomers have to go through IRCC. IRCC is the only game in town when it comes to obtaining a visa. And so if newcomers are not aware of the settlement services available to them via IRCC, there's a very high likelihood newcomers are not aware of other major opportunities, such as opportunities in smaller communities and rural communities, as well as other vital pieces of information that can help them succeed in Canada. So what I'd like to do is offer a few ideas that can help us brainstorm how we can better leverage technology to bridge the divide and, of course, to achieve the objective we're seeking to achieve through the discussions we're having at this event, which is to promote more immigration to our smaller communities. First, we need to better leverage technology to get the word out to newcomers on opportunities in smaller centers. And for the reasons I just noted, given that it is the hub when it comes to visa issuance, IRCC should take the lead here. IRCC has a variety of very helpful tools on its website to help newcomers discover their visa eligibility as well as settlement information. But there's no such tool, whether it's operated by IRCC or provinces or other stakeholders, to guide newcomers in terms of identifying opportunities in smaller centers. Given IRCC's central role in our immigration system, it makes most sense for them to host this info. And it can simply be an online wizard where newcomers are asked a variety of questions along the lines of what job opportunities they're interested in and what sort of lifestyle preferences they're looking for when they move to Canada. The department can then share with them more personalized information on a variety of options for them to consider. At this point, IRCC would do the handover over the smaller communities who would take the lead in terms of disseminating useful information as well as selling themselves to these prospective newcomers. We're all familiar with exploratory visits by newcomers and the benefits of engaging in them under the PNP. And technology use by these smaller communities can promote the benefits of exploratory visits at a larger scale and at a deeper level. Once newcomers are in touch with the smaller communities, the communities themselves can provide the likes of virtual tours to show newcomers around the community. And here is a great opportunity to highlight housing options, schools, daycares, healthcare facilities, recreational and cultural centers, and much more. Providing this concierge level of support, as we've seen over the last 25 or so years, gives smaller communities an edge over larger ones. We're also seeing more virtual job fairs, and one of the benefits of these fairs is they impress among newcomers the amount of employers seeking to hire in smaller communities, and they also enable connections between the two sides. We've all heard from our personal experiences from employers saying, I was shocked when I met these newcomers themselves by the caliber and the way they presented themselves, which is ironic given how selective our immigration system is. But employers themselves don't know what they don't know, and so it's incumbent on us to identify forums where the two sides can engage with one another and employers increase their propensity of recruiting, supporting newcomers in their hiring practices. One other thing we can stress to newcomers is in today's digital age, they don't necessarily have to live in Canada where they're going to be doing work. They can obviously work remotely. And so smaller communities can sell this point to newcomers, noting that you can obviously live here, have a great quality of life while working remotely for an employer in another jurisdiction. The pandemic has really stressed to us that we all want to balance quality of life with work, and here smaller Canadian communities, again, are uniquely positioned compared to larger ones. This leads to my next point, which is on marketing and social media. As I noted at the start, newcomers are very active online and on their phones, but the Canadian immigration space is still lagging a bit in this regard. Smaller communities, including SPOs, need to become more active, posting on social media and answering newcomer questions. Social media is also great for sharing newcomer success stories, and this sort of social proof can help to attract more newcomers. We also need to be mindful that information consumption patterns among all of us and among newcomers themselves have changed significantly in recent years. People are no longer looking for static forms of information such as articles or guides. What they're looking for are the likes of videos, webinars, podcasts, and other forms of interactive content. And so smaller communities who are able to make this adjustment will place themselves at an advantage. Now, going back to IRCC before I conclude, I'd like to highlight a few other ways I feel the department can harness technology and make some policy adjustments to support smaller communities. Perhaps we can harness technology and the improvements that the department has been making to process applications to reduce the service standard for programs that promote immigration to smaller communities, such as the PNP, RNIP, RNIP, AIP, etc. And this can help further incentivize newcomers to apply to such programs. IRCC could also auto-enroll all those approved for PR into its pre-arrival services. This would address the awareness issue and probably increase the uptake of the services themselves. IRCC could give SPOs more flexibility to market IRCC-funded settlement services. One of the reasons this is important is SPOs obviously are unable to serve clients until they get proof that they're eligible, which makes it difficult to answer questions and have meaningful interactions with newcomers online. And I really think we should move away from thinking about things through a pre- and post-arrival lens, as well as through an eligible and ineligible lens, and simply focus on how we can deliver settlement services to help newcomers succeed to the best of our abilities. On this point, roughly half of our PRs now are transitioning from temporary resident status. This means that those here applying for PR can't benefit from pre-arrival services, even if they only came here recently, for example, for spousal sponsorship. Moreover, international students, for example, can be here for 5 years or so before they become eligible for IRCC-funded services. This is paradoxical, of course, because IRCC wants them to stay, and research clearly shows the earlier the settlement intervention, the more likely a newcomer is going to settle, integrate, and succeed. I'm not sure how we address the eligibility issue. Again, given IRCC spends $2 billion already, they would have to break the bank to be able to open up accessibility to more temporary residents. But I'm sure all of us can put our brains together and come up with some form of solution. I think at the very least, when it comes to sponsored spouses awaiting for their PR application to be processed while they're here in Canada, we should open up eligibility to them, given that they're here in Canada waiting between 1 to 2 years for IRCC to simply approve their PR application. So I started off by saying we've made significant progress on the regionalization front over the past 25 years. Technology can help us make significantly more progress in the next 25 years. I'm not saying we all need to start dancing on TikTok, although I was very impressed by the moves I saw about an hour ago in this room. But what I'm saying is that newcomers are heavily reliant on technology, and by being more attuned to this, we can attract and retain more of them to our smaller cities and communities. Thank you.